Hey, what is going on, everybody? Tyler Carlston here with the Mortgage Accelerated podcast. And today we have a very special guest. I would like to welcome on Brian Sumption of Lit Mortgage. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thanks for having me on today. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today on the show.
Dude, I'm excited too. I mean, I'm sure everybody that's going to tune in is going to love to hear about what you've gone through in your past and stuff. So why don't we dive into it right away, Brian? Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? I know I gave a little bit brief introduction. Why don't we give a little bit more in depth on that?
So my name's Brian Sumption. I'm the co-founder of Lit Mortgage, and Lit was started back in March. Why it was started was been in the originating sides for about 15 plus years, 16 years now, and just saw that with what Anthony Casa has been doing with the AIM group and Brawl, and seeing some movement going on. I have a business partner that kind of pushed me over the edge to join him in this journey, and just felt it was time. I started my career in the broker side. Market went south in 07. Tried to find a job, was called a used car salesman, so to speak, because of not having any credential on the resume. And so Lit was created for us to be able to serve our clients, serve our realtor partners, and serve our community in that regard. So it's more than just about us. It's about building deeper relationships within the area that we're at in Columbus, Ohio right now, and taking care of our associates as we grow. Family is very important to me, and that culture, I believe, is something that we want to instill, that trust and that family atmosphere in with not only our associates, but with our referral partners and our clients that we work with, because it is their biggest investment that they're going to make. So we want to know that they're in good hands with doing that.
That's awesome, man. So let's dive into the first topic. Obviously, you'd brought up Anthony Casa, and you're wearing the shirt. So what's your opinion on AIM and the whole organization that they're running over there?
I love it. And here's why. Back, when the brokers got the bad name way back from the early 2000s, I call it the Wild Wild West of lending, right? We actually have an organization, and we have a front man out there pushing to give the brokers exposure, right? And he's done such an amazing job with going to different lenders, wholesalers, and partnering up and giving us the tools and the technology and the service to be able to serve our clients and give them the needs. And for the push and the amount of work that he's putting in. I mean, you think about 24 months ago, no one was talking about broker. You think about 12 months ago, no one was really mentioning broker. Within the last 6 months, broker is now being on CNN and Housing Wire, and that ugly term that used to be called broker is starting to become positive again in the communities and in the market. And it's just amazing what he's done. My hat's off to him, because, being in the non-bank world and then coming back into the broker world, just knowing that you've got an ally there that's helping push and helping grow and giving us the tools so we can compete with the big boys, right? It's just amazing what he's doing. And like I said, he caught my attention when I was still in the non-bank world, and I've been following him ever since. And I haven't met him yet, but someday I'll get to one of these events that he's throwing, and looking forward to having a nice conversation with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely phenomenal what he's been able to do. I mean, like you said, he works so hard. I don't know if you've seen, but like he always posts his alarm clocks like 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, dude, what?
I thought I got up early at 4:30. He's kicking my butt. He's already ready to go.
Exactly.
So loaded at 4:30.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great thing for sure. And I definitely, like you had said, brokers starting to become a more publicly accepted word as opposed to frowned upon like it's been in the past.
Yeah, and AIM, I mean, what a great, great value with all the different tools, with Arrive coming out for us brokers to have one platform to be able to use as our LOS, our point of sale, documents, the communication, the communities that we're building, the tools that he's got with MBS Highway that's attached to that. Especially right now, if you don't have MBS Highway, to be able to have that access and watching what's going on in this crazy market right now with the that took place the other day. And, it's like, reminds me of '07 when I was talking to clients where I'm like, it's like gas prices right now. You drive by the pump, you see, maybe 2.25. The next day you see 2.75, and you're like, what happened overnight? That's, the same thing with the rate. So, with Barry Habib's done with MBS Highway, a lot of LOs, whether they're broker or non-broker, use that. It's just a great tool for us to have to be able to gauge and understand what's going on in the market as well. But with AIM and Arrive, that Arrive platform, everything's just built into one. So it's so simple to be able to use from a broker standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with you. So why don't we dive back into the beginning of your mortgage career? So you had said you started off with a broker. Where and when was that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I got into it. So I used to bartend, and I was slinging drinks one night, and some guys came in from a big bank. I won't say the name, and they were talking about how much money they made. And I was like, "There's no way, no way they're making this in a month." And regular that was coming in, a buddy of mine, kept saying, "Hey, you need to become a loan officer, right?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is." And so after a while, he came back in and I'm like, "Hey, are you still hiring?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I started my career at a little small company that was doing just like subprime. I think our A paper was US Bank, ABN AMRO, and maybe Charter One. I spent about a year there, and then I had an opportunity through some mutual friends to go to, this is probably back 03, 04, somewhere in there. And I had an opportunity to go to a little bit larger of a company that actually had FHA VA. And I was like, wow, this is different pricing. Don't have to charge, points. Everything was back in yield spread back in those days. And I spent 3 years there, 3.5 years there. And then one day we showed up and said, our owner was like, pack your offices. And, we had a great month, and we're like, what do you mean pack your offices? And so I moved around to another brokerage, and then '07 hit. And it was probably fall that I noticed like the MI rates were going up a little bit, and my investors weren't really having a lot of buyers. My realtors weren't really having a lot of buyers, and subprime meltdown was in full effect back then. And I started reaching out to recruiters, and they were just like, "Hey, Brian, we can't find anything." And I was just like, I haven't done anything wrong. I didn't do the no income, no assets. I did everything legit. I'm a good guy. And so I ended up at Chase, and what I call docking my boat at Chase for several years, which was a great experience for me. And from Chase, I ended up moving on to another bank, and then spent some time there, and had an opportunity to have more branches. So I left and went to another bank, and then had an opportunity to come back to Chase, doing their private wealth clients, relocation. And I wanted to get into management at that point in time. And I just felt like there was a bigger purpose for me than just originating, and ended up leaving Chase, went to another bank, and spent 2.5 years there as a sales manager, growing that, and then went to a company called Movement Mortgage that in Columbus, Ohio, no one even knew about, right? I think there were 2 employees that were there at the time. And when I told my wife, I went down and visited Toby Harris at Virginia Beach, and I just left there, wow, because I'd spent so many years in the bank world and that culture that it becomes brutal. It beats you up. And, I met Toby Harris, great person. If you don't know him, get to know him, co-founder of Movement, and took a chance and went over to Movement and spent almost 3 years with Movement. And some things, unfortunately, when business decisions were made, and I left, went to New American for about 8 months, and 2 of the guys that had brought me in had left. Kind of felt like this wasn't really it, and then we decided to open up. Took the chance, believed in myself, believed in my business partner, and in March we rolled out Lit Mortgage, and I can't be happier. I feel like I'm home. Where I belong in the broker space again. So it's kind of like a little snippet. Might have been a little too long for you, but a little snippet of just a little background about me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a journey, and sounds like you're back where you've always wanted to be. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about Lit? I mean, you've only been open for 4 or 5 months now, but what's the journey been like since you opened doors back in March?
Yeah, so getting it up and running, getting the branding, getting the logo, getting the philosophy, the core values were the most important thing for us getting started, right? You got to have a great foundation to be able to grow. So the intent when we opened the doors was business partner, myself, and we brought on an associate, a buddy of mine that's been with me through different moves in my career. And so when we created Lit, our priorities were to take care of our associates first. We believe that if you take care of your employees, everything else will take care of themselves. So if we invest in them and we care for them, it'll provide a stronger foundation for our clients and for our referral partners, because if they're happy, then everyone else is going to be happy in that regard.
Yeah.
So the whole Lit, what that's about, Lit was it's an acronym for lending with integrity and trust. So, integrity and trust are big pieces of not only me and my business partner. So when we were trying to come up with different names, it's kind of ironic because everyone's like, "Oh, Lit." So you're trying to, be trendy for the millennials, so to speak. And I'm like, no, it sounds great, but it was more for the core value of the lending and with integrity and trust.
That's awesome, man. So Brian, what do you think? I always like to ask this. What do you think your biggest struggle was, if not just when you first got into the industry, but what do you think the biggest struggle was for you during your whole career?
Man, I would think getting into the industry, referrals. I mean, I think back when I first started, I was going through a phone book, smiling and dialing. Today, we're blessed, and guys that are getting in, you've got so many great groups on social media that you can join or be a part of. There's so many good influencers in the market right now for mortgages that are doing a great job trying to help coach. And I see it all the time with what they're doing and trying to comment. I think today, you can't lose sight of. It depends on what you want to be, right? Do you want to be a refi guy or do you want to be a purchase guy? My whole career, it's been always about purchases. Refis are great to do. I don't want to slap anyone that does it or say anything negative about that. But for me, the purchase transaction, building the relationship, getting to know the consumer, listening to the customer's needs, what they're trying to achieve. And then at the end, I think them getting their keys and the expressions that they have on their face, because this process isn't easy. To be able to be a homeowner is amazing. Struggles today, it's just, to be honest, in our market, we have a lot of lenders that are shelling out, thousands of dollars paying for realtor leads. And that's something where the LOs believe that they have to pay that to be able to bring value to the realtor. And, so if you're new in our market, you're going to come in and you're going to have X, Y, and Z companies that have a budget that are funneling, lots of money out for leads that, are just feeding a beast with one of the platforms that some use in that regard. But just being able to come in, find a niche, know your products, try to know your guidelines. I think that's a struggle for any new LO. But you got to have that core base. If you don't know the product guidelines, you need to know where to go get the answers to those. I think that's always a struggle, and with them constantly changing, it's just something that it's one of those things where you just got to know where to get the information at. And I think with social media, like I said, in some of these private groups that are for mortgage loan officers, a lot of the other guys that have been experienced or girls that have been experienced, they do a great job trying to help get the new guys or girls up and running as quickly as possible. At the end of the day, it's always going to be about leads. I think it's a struggle. That's why I said earlier with you when we were talking with what you're doing from the marketing side, if you have a good platform in place or know of a good platform or are willing to spend money, for a new LO, money is a very sensitive topic, right? You're trying to get a loan in because that's how you're getting paid. And you don't necessarily have the marketing dollars or the lead dollars, and you call those marketing dollars, to be able to generate. So leads are always going to be a struggle. And those that have perfected that, I think, are doing really well in the market. And I'm seeing crazy numbers right now. And each company, everyone's got their own different way of generating. I think just diving in and getting known in your community, if you're new, is the best way to start. And it's just going to take time. It's like watching grass grow, right? Or watching paint dry. You can't expect overnight success. You got to be willing to put the work in and the time in, and good things will happen if you keep hustling.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit more. Obviously, coming from movement, I'm sure a lot of people know that they're very brand driven, and it seems like you've taken some of those core values of trying to build the brand, get the trust of the consumer over to Lip Mortgage. Could you explain a little bit more about how you're trying to build that brand?
Yeah, so Casey always said when movement was first started that Facebook was free, social media is free. And when you're a company that's just starting out, you got to take advantage of some resources. So I've had some great leaders, some great coaches in my time when I was over at Movement. Tim Davis is amazing as a brand coach. Was blessed to be able to have him in. I had a great mentor in Brian Covey. And it's just little things with, what we did over there and what they kind of coached, and you kind of learn, right? So when you become a market leader of a brand that no one's heard of, it's exposure. So, whether it's posting pre-made flyers, Movement's marketing team is amazing with what they've got. That's one thing when you ask, with a new company, and when you're starting a brokerage, you kind of miss some of these little things that the bigger boys have to get you up and running. But I just think for right now, the videos, my videos probably don't look the best. I don't really feel comfortable sometimes doing them, but I just know that you've got to keep putting them out and repeat, and then just going around and trying to meet with as many networking groups, referral partners that you can, and just get the message out. You sit in your office all day, you're never going to get the word out. So, and with social media, with all the different types of social media there are, it's a great way where you can just upload video or message, whatever it may be. And, you got, depending on how many connections you have, and those connections, could be hundreds to thousands of people that can see a brand that you're trying to get exposure on.
Yeah, I mean, that's, in my opinion, even though, like you had said, I'm on the lead side of things, where that's more of an instant get business into the door pretty quick. I still feel that brand building is ultimately where you need to be to grow your company, because I had mentioned you need to get the trust of your consumers, of your market, and once that's established, it really never goes away. I mean, assuming nothing happens to damage that reputation, it stays pretty on course.
Yeah, and as you grow, when you start scaling, one thing that I think is a critical piece is you've got to hire the right people, right? And what I mean by that is, you could have an individual that is just a top performer and just crushes it and does great numbers. But if you don't have that person that's not all about them, and they're about the core of what the vision is of the company and what our mission is, it can ruin it. I've been a part of it in the past where, you've got someone that's all about them and it isn't for the bigger picture, and it can cause a cancer inside. And, with a small company that we are, being able to find the right people, I think, is critical with hiring and growing and getting that brand out, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your shield, it's your brand, it's your baby. And you want to trust in everyone, and you want to believe in everyone, but you also got to make sure when you're doing that hiring that you're getting the right people in that understand your core values and your philosophy, which is why, as we start to expand, one of the things that, when we do hire, going over who we are as a company is going to be a critical piece of that. And, we're not there yet, but, once that we get to that piece of the growth, you just got to make sure you got the right person or that working with you in that regard.
Yeah, I'm so
huge, man. It's huge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm so glad you went into that point, because that led us to the next question. What really is the goal for Lip Mortgage? What's your short-term 6 to 12-month goal that you want to have accomplished by this time next year?
So short-term, right now, we kind of came in really not taking on a bunch of loans or having a lot of debt. So with running P&Ls in the past in my career, being profitable, getting up and running, the first focus was the first 3 months, getting the brand, getting the logo, getting the website, doing the compliance side of it, from comp agreements to company, the company plan, who we are. To the next 3 months, we're at a point now where we're actually talking about expanding, maybe adding 1 or 2 LOs by the end of the year. So the next 6 months is probably add 2, maybe 3 LOs. Right now, to keep overhead low, I'm just renting an office that's small. So my business partner was down here last week and we started looking at some space. So next 6 months, get our own spot, right, where we can still keep that rent low, so we can stay profitable, from the marketing to the other things that we want to invest in for growth. And then 12 months, if the goal would be to probably have a team of maybe 5, probably bring on a processor somewhere in that process, in between that process, for the support piece that is needed. Everyone's crazy busy right now. And when you're in the broker road, there's contract processing, which you can reach out to. A lot of smaller shops like myself maybe don't have it in-house since we're so new. Some already do. But I feel like you've got to have that service piece, and having, whether it be a loan officer assistant or a processor that works with you to be able to go out, for the loan officer to be able to go out and get more business, is critical. Because right now we're all processing our own loans, and you get to a point where you're like, man, I've got more business coming in, but I've got this other business that I got to take care of. And it becomes one of those struggles, right? And it's real. So our priorities right now are space, looking into getting support for what we have in place right now. And I'd say 12 months from now, have our own office and have a small team underneath us, getting ready to go to the bigger growth that we want to do down the line.
That's awesome, man. I mean, judging from everything that we've talked about, I mean, I have no doubts in my mind that you're going to be able to hit every goal that you have. So, Brian, it looks like that is all the time that we have today. I do appreciate you coming on. I hope everybody who tuned in got some type of value out of all of this. Anything you want to say before we head off, Brian?
I appreciate you being on. Keep hustling. Wake up every day, grinding. Be blessed to be out and that you're there. And I'm just looking forward to watching you grow and everyone else, and keep helping each other. I know there's a lot of back and forth, which is the better way, broker, bank, non-bank. You know what, at the end of the day, the pond is huge. We should all be working together, because there's bigger enemies out there right now trying to take us all down. And we just need to work together and not have this stigma of broker, banker, bank atmosphere when it comes to the LO community. We all need to be one right now.
Love it, man. All right. So again, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for everybody tuning in. We are taking a break next week, but we will be back strong 2 weeks from now with our next guest. Thank you for tuning in on the Mortgage Accelerated Podcast.